Welcome back from the break, Rams, into another week of Double Take. I'm Terah Barrio, joined by Rachel Hallam, who is filling in for Jessica Mendoza this week. Thanks for joining me, Rachel.
Of course, Terah. Thanks for having me. Tennis and baseball had quite a busy weekend. Terah, let's start with baseball.
What a weekend it was for the CSU baseball team as they took on Williston State Tetons this past Thursday and Friday. On day one, the teams traded games, both winning one. In game one, the Rams weren't holding back and came out on fire, winning 10-8. But in game two, the Rams weren't able to find the heat they were bringing in game one and fell to the Tetons 4-0. But on Friday, things turned around for the Rams as they took control and picked up two more wins. The first game on day two was tough for the offense for both teams. The first run came in the third inning for the Rams, but the Tetons answered back in the sixth, tying up the score 1-1. Going into the seventh, the Rams fended off another offensive stance against the Tetons. Then, with 2 outs and a man on third, CSU caught a lucky break on a dropped third strike, and a batter ran to first. The catcher tried to throw him out, but accidentally hit him in the back, which opened up the Rams to score the man from third in an exciting victory 2-1. The cold definitely played an effect in game two on Friday. Both teams were teeing off with both scoring 5 runs in the top and the bottom of the first. Right after that, the Rams were able to put up 6 more runs and managed to hold the Tetons from scoring any more. After 5 innings, the umpire called the game while the Rams were up 11-5. Due to the cold weather, the Rams took the series 3-1.
The weather also affected the CSU women's tennis team when they moved their match indoors to the Country Club, the Rams' first host, Drake. On Saturday, CSU swept through their matchups, finishing 4-0 against the Drake Bulldogs. Stella Cliff and Emily Calbo started the match on the right foot for the Rams with a 6-4 win over the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs were quick to answer with a 6-3 win over the Rams. However, Riley Reeves and Alyssa Grijalva were able to take down their opponent for a 7-6 victory, gaining the doubles points for the Rams. CSU would continue their hot streak as Cliff, Nancy Ghanem, and Emily Lushwager would all defeat their Drake opponents in their singles match, resulting in a 4-0 victory for the Rams. The following day, the women's took on the University of Texas El Paso Miners. The Rams won their first doubles match with Alyssa Grijalva and Riley Reeves crushing their UTEP opponents in a 6-2 win. However, the Rams would then go on to fall short to the Miners in their following 2 doubles matches. With 2 losses in doubles, the Rams needed to fight hard in their single games. Nancy Ghanem went on to win her first 2 sets with ease over Kathleen Piercegona, and adding a second win to the Rams matchup. After having to go into her third set, the CSU junior Stella Cliff was able to overcome the hard-fought matchup against Vanessa Valdez. Later that day, the Rams were able to take the win home after both Alyssa Grijalva and Emma Corwin took down the Miners each in the third set in their singles matchup against the Miners. The Rams would finish the day 5-2 over the UTEP Miners. The team will stay on their home court this Thursday when they will be taking on UNC Greensboro at 1 in the afternoon.
What a great weekend it was for the Rams. The CSU men's basketball team is currently taking on Utah State Aggies from the Moberg Arena, and the current score is 10-12. Utah State ahead. Be sure to keep up with all the updates from our sports Twitter account with _CTV Sports. Well, Ram fans, it's time for this week's Disrupted Picks. We sent out a tweet today asking what you would like to hear us talk about for this week. Rachel, will you do the honors?
Of course. Now, our question today comes from Lindsay Amundsen. The NFL and NBA are the only organizations that restrict a player from going pro until a certain period out of high school. Should they keep the restrictions or allow players to choose when they go? What do you think?
Well, I think this is a very controversial topic, especially considering MLB can draft out of high school, and so can hockey. So I think the huge argument for everyone is why can they do that and not these 2 leagues? And my personal opinion, I believe that they should keep the restriction, and I'll say why. First, when you're coming out of high school, you're not physically and mentally mature enough, I feel, especially for these 2 sports, especially football being a very contact sport.
For sure.
And I will say the thing for the MLB and for NHL is you have farmer leagues. So you have teams when you're drafted out of high school. You're not just getting to the top league. You have teams to build up on. And football doesn't have that. Once you're drafted to football, you're on the main team. I mean, you could be on their practice team and stuff and may not be getting all that time, but you're not maturing yet. And that's why I think it's super important for those people for the athletes to get the 4 years in college to play and to develop as mature athletes.
Yeah, I have to agree with that too. I do believe that time in college is very important to that person, getting them to that pro level. But at the same time, I kind of consider it a very circumstantial discussion, because I feel like it definitely depends on the player and where they're at. Like you say about their maturity level and everything like that. But it definitely does depend on how experienced they are in the sport and if they really do need that time, because there could be a time during that period where they're in college that they can get injured and possibly ruin their future careers or even contracts that they could possibly get later on.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I like how you mentioned they could get injured in college, but I mean, they could get injured and getting drafted out of high school too, which could really affect anything.
For sure.
And I think if you're drafted, if the NFL and the NBA dropped the restriction and you could draft someone out of high school, I think that almost will ruin a kid's career, because you also have to consider financial. Do you think like an 18-year-old can handle a $300,000, $400,000 contract and be able to be responsible with that kind of money at 18 years old? I mean, I'm sure there's athletes who could do that, but the rating of that actually being a consistent thing for all 18-year-olds is, I believe it's unlikely.
Yeah, for sure. And back to your point about the MLB and everything, definitely allowing for them to be drafted outside of high school and stuff like that, it does affect those players in that position too, because since the NBA won't allow them to be drafted directly out of high school, some of them are getting pushed towards sports like MLB, and that might not necessarily be the one that they really want to focus on as a pro and really get that experience from. They might want the NBA experience, but because of the timing and everything, they're going to go towards sports like the MLB because they'll let them go.
Yeah. Well, Rams, that's all we have for you tonight, and thank you for joining us this week. The Ram fans, Sally, that is all we have for you tonight. But for more sports news throughout this week, head to thecollegian.com and follow us on Twitter at sports_CTV. I'm Terah Barrio.
And I'm Rachel Hallam. Don't go anywhere, because coming up next, Justin Rios has an exclusive interview with Lindsay Paricio from the Arts and Science exhibition. Stay tuned.